I was standing in my kitchen when the lawyer called and told me my daughter was suing me for half of my grandson's $8 million. $8 million that Noah earned himself at 14 years old by creating an app that helps deaf people communicate with hearing people. $8 million he made while Vanessa was God knows where, doing God knows what, after she dumped him on my porch 6 years ago, like he was a problem she couldn't solve. Mrs. Pearson, Vanessa's attorney is claiming she still has parental rights, Robert said on the phone. She's arguing that the money should be managed by Noah's legal guardian, and according to her, that's her. My hands started shaking. That's impossible. I adopted Noah 3 years ago. She didn't respond to the papers. The court terminated her rights. She's claiming inadequate notification, that she never received proper notice. It's a lie, but it's going to be expensive to fight. I looked up at the ceiling, knowing Noah was upstairs in his room, probably coding something brilliant, completely unaware that the woman who abandoned him was back and wanted a piece of what he'd built without her. 3 weeks earlier, Vanessa had shown up at my door in a rented BMW, wearing clothes that cost more than my mortgage payment, crying about how sorry she was, how she'd gotten sober, how she wanted to be his mother again. She held Noah and apologized, and I actually believed her. I actually thought maybe she'd changed. But then she saw him on the news, saw the interview about bridge signs selling for $8 million, and suddenly, her apologies turned into questions about Noah's financial future, and making sure he's properly taken care of, and what's fair for everyone involved. I should have seen it coming. I should have slammed the door in her face the second she showed up. But I'd felt sorry for her. I thought maybe she deserved a second chance. Now she was taking that second chance and using it to try to steal from her own son. The worst part? Noah knew. He'd figured it out before I did. 2 days after Vanessa left Boise to give us space, he'd come to me and asked if I thought she'd told anyone about the money. When I called her and asked, she admitted she'd mentioned it to her AA sponsor and a friend in Spokane. Noah had just nodded like that, confirmed what he already suspected. She's going to come back for it. He'd signed to me. People like her always do. He was 14 years old and already understood his mother better than I ever had. Now Robert was telling me we had 2 options. Fight her in court, which could take years and cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees, or settle, give her something to make her go away. How much does she want? I asked. Her lawyer started at $2 million. But Mrs. Pearson, you need to understand something. Even if we fight this and win, which we will, she could still damage Noah's reputation. She could go to the media, tell them you manipulated a disabled child, that you stole him from his mother. It doesn't matter if it's true. People will believe the story that's more dramatic. I felt sick, because he was right. Vanessa could destroy everything Noah had built, everything he'd worked for, just by telling a good enough lie to the right reporter. That night, Noah came downstairs and found me sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine I hadn't touched. He sat across from me and signed, "She's never going to stop, is she?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell him it would be fine, that I'd protect him, that his mother wouldn't hurt him again. But Noah was too smart for comfortable lies. "I don't know," I signed back. He looked at me with those brown eyes that had seen too much for 14 years and signed something that made my heart stop. "I want to give her money." "Absolutely not. Listen to me. If we give her enough to go away, really go away, forever, then she can't hurt us anymore. We buy our peace. We end this. Noah, she doesn't deserve a single cent." "I know, but this isn't about what she deserves. It's about what we need, and we need her gone." I stared at my grandson, this child I'd raised from 3 years old, this brilliant boy who'd taught himself to code, who'd created something that was changing the world, who was now sitting across from me, proposing to pay off his own mother just to get her out of our lives. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "500,000, with a contract that says she gives up all parental rights forever, never contacts me again, never speaks about us publicly. If she breaks it, she pays back every penny, plus interest. That's a lot of money. It's 6% of what I made, and it's worth it to never have to see her again." I wanted to argue. I wanted to fight. I wanted to protect him from having to make this kind of decision. But looking at his face, I realized he wasn't asking for permission. He was telling me what he'd already decided. "Are you sure?" I signed. He nodded. "I'm sure. But Grandma, you have to promise me something. If she takes the money and comes back later, if she breaks the agreement, you can't feel sorry for her. You can't give her another chance. Promise me." I promised. We made the offer through Robert. Vanessa's lawyer countered with $1 million. We held firm at $650,000. After 2 weeks of negotiation, they accepted. The day Vanessa signed the papers, Robert called to tell me it was done. "She cried while signing," he said. "Just so you know." "I don't care," I told him. And I meant it. But here's what Robert didn't know. What nobody knew, except me. 3 days before Vanessa signed those papers, before she took that money and promised to disappear forever, I'd gotten a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man's voice said, "Mrs. Pearson, this is Detective Mike Torres with the Portland Police Department. I'm calling about your daughter, Vanessa Pearson." My blood went cold. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, ma'am. But I need to ask you some questions about her recent activities and finances. We've been investigating a fraud case, and her name came up in connection with..." He kept talking, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Why Vanessa had come back. Why she needed money so desperately. Why she was willing to sign any contract, take any amount, as long as she got cash fast. She wasn't just greedy. She was running from something. And we'd just given her $650,000 to disappear. I hung up with the detective after answering his questions as vaguely as I could. Then I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone, trying to decide what to do. If I told Noah, it would destroy him. He'd blame himself for giving her money. He'd think he'd helped her get away with whatever she'd done. If I told the police where she was going with the settlement money, they might be able to stop her before she ran. But then the whole thing would become public. Noah's name would be dragged through the news. His app, his reputation, everything he'd built would be connected to his criminal mother. Or I could say nothing. Let Vanessa take the money and run. Let her be someone else's problem. Protect Noah from the truth and hope it never came back to haunt us. I had 24 hours before the money transferred. 24 hours to decide whether to save my grandson from his mother one more time, or let her go and pray we'd finally bought our freedom. Upstairs, Noah was working on his computer, completely unaware that the woman who'd abandoned him 6 years ago wasn't just selfish, she was dangerous. And I just handed her the money to disappear. The question was, had I saved us, or had I made the biggest mistake of my life? I picked up my phone and stared at Detective Torres's number. My finger hovered over the call button, and I had to decide, right now, what kind of mother I was going to be. I remember the exact temperature that morning, -4 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of cold that makes your lungs ache when you breathe, that turns your breath into white ghosts hanging in the air. I was standing at my kitchen window in my bathrobe, watching the snow fall over Boise, when I saw Vanessa's beat-up Honda Civic pull into my driveway. It was 6:30 in the morning, February 14th, 2018, Valentine's Day, though I'd stopped caring about that holiday years ago, ever since my husband Frank passed. The street was quiet, just the hiss of snow hitting the pavement and the distant scrape of a neighbor's shovel. I watched Vanessa get out of the car, her shoulders hunched against the cold, and then she opened the back door. That's when I saw him. Noah, my grandson, 3 years old, wearing a puffy winter coat that was too big for him, his little hands clutching a stuffed elephant that Vanessa had bought him at Walmart, back when she was still trying. She lifted him out of the car seat, and even from my window, I could see he was crying, silently crying, the way deaf children cry when they don't understand why their world is falling apart. I pulled my robe tighter and opened the front door before she could knock. "Mom," Vanessa said. Her voice was flat, exhausted. She looked terrible, her blonde hair greasy and pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes ringed with dark circles, her skin pale and broken out. She was 26 years old and looked 40. "I need you to take him." "Vanessa, what are you—" "I can't do this anymore." She was already climbing the porch steps, Noah pressed against her shoulder, his face buried in her neck. "I'm not ready to be a mother. I need to figure out my life." My heart dropped into my stomach. I'd known things were hard for her. Noah's father had left before he was even born. Some guy she'd met at a bar in Seattle. A one-night mistake she'd tried to turn into something more. When Noah was diagnosed as profoundly deaf at 18 months, Vanessa had spiraled. She started going out more, drinking more, leaving Noah with babysitters she found on Craigslist. She'd lost 2 jobs in a year. I'd offered to help, offered to watch Noah whenever she needed, but she'd been proud, stubborn. "I can handle it, Mom," she'd said. "I'm his mother." Now she was standing on my porch, holding him out to me like he was a package she needed to return. "Vanessa, you can't just—" "Please, Mom." Her eyes filled with tears, but they looked rehearsed somehow, like she'd practiced this moment. "Just for a little while, until I get back on my feet. I got a job opportunity in Portland at a restaurant, and they said I can live above the place rent-free, but they don't allow kids. It's just temporary. I swear." Noah's small body was shaking. He pulled his face back from Vanessa's shoulder and looked at her, signing something with his tiny hands. I'd only learned a few signs: mom, eat, sleep. But I didn't need to know ASL to understand what he was asking. Why? Vanessa didn't respond. She didn't know how. She'd taken one beginner ASL class at the community college and quit after 3 weeks. "How long is temporary?" I asked. "I don't know. A few months, maybe 6. I just need time to save up money, get my own place, figure things out." She was already backing down the steps, back toward her car. "His clothes are in the duffel bag, and his medication for his ears. He gets infections sometimes. It's all written down." "Vanessa." She kissed Noah's forehead quickly, then handed him to me. He was heavier than I expected, solid and warm, and he immediately started squirming, reaching back for her, his mouth open in a silent wail. She didn't look at him. She grabbed a beat-up blue duffel bag from the car and shoved it into my arms alongside Noah. "Thank you, Mom. I love you. I'll call you soon." Then she got in her car and drove away. I stood there on my porch, holding my grandson as he cried soundlessly, watching my daughter's taillights disappear down Harrison Boulevard. The snow kept falling, the cold kept biting, and Noah kept reaching for someone who was already gone. That first week was hell. Noah screamed every night, not out loud. He couldn't, but his body screamed. He'd thrash in the guest bed I'd set up for him, his face red and wet with tears, his hands signing frantically for his mother. I didn't know what to say to him because I didn't know how to say anything. I'd hold him and rock him and pray he'd eventually tire himself out enough to sleep. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't, and we'd both sit on the floor of his room until sunrise, exhausted and broken. During the day, I tried to establish some kind of routine. Breakfast at 7, Sesame Street on PBS. He couldn't hear it, but he liked watching the colors and movements. Lunch at noon. Nap time, though he rarely napped. Dinner at 5, bath at 6:30. Bed by 7. It was the same schedule I'd used when I raised Vanessa, back when I thought I knew what I was doing as a mother. back before I apparently failed so badly that my own daughter couldn't handle the responsibilities I taught her. I called Vanessa every day that first week. She didn't answer. I left voicemails. "Honey, please call me back. Noah needs to hear from you. I need to know you're okay." Nothing. By day 8, her phone was disconnected. That's when the panic set in. That's when I realized this wasn't temporary. I was 53 years old, retired from teaching 2nd grade at Hawthorne Elementary after 30 years, living on a teacher's pension that barely covered my mortgage and bills. My husband Frank had died 4 years earlier from a sudden heart attack while mowing the lawn, dropped dead at 57 without warning, leaving me alone in our 3-bedroom house with too many memories and not enough money. I'd been planning to travel, maybe volunteer at the church, spend my retirement doing anything except raising another child. But here I was. On day 10, I sat Noah down at the kitchen table after breakfast. He was eating Cheerios with his hands, one at a time, methodically dropping them into his mouth. His stuffed elephant sat next to his bowl, propped up like it was watching over him. I pulled out my phone and opened YouTube. I'd been researching. I'd spent hours after Noah went to bed each night, sitting at my kitchen table with my reading glasses on, watching videos about parenting deaf children, about ASL, about early intervention, and cochlear implants, and deaf culture. It was overwhelming, but I knew one thing for certain. If I was going to do this, if I was going to be what Noah needed, I had to learn his language. I found a video titled ASL for Beginners, Lesson 1. A cheerful woman with curly red hair appeared on screen, signing and speaking simultaneously. "Hello, welcome to ASL Basics. Let's start with the most important word, love," she demonstrated, both hands in fists crossed over her chest. I paused the video and tried it myself. Noah looked up from his Cheerios, interested. I pointed at myself, then made the sign, then pointed at him. "I love you." Noah's eyes went wide. Then slowly, he made the sign back. His little hands crossed over his chest, holding on like he was trying to keep something from breaking. I started crying right there at the kitchen table, and Noah climbed into my lap and hugged me. We sat like that for a long time, holding each other, while snow fell outside and the house creaked around us. That was the moment I decided I wasn't just babysitting. I was going to be his grandmother in every sense of the word. And if Vanessa ever came back, she'd have to prove she deserved him. The next 2 years were a blur of learning and growing and exhausting myself into someone new. I enrolled in ASL classes at Boise State University's continuing education program. 3 nights a week, I'd drive downtown, park in the student lot, and sit in a classroom with college kids half my age, learning to shape my hands into words. The instructor, a deaf man named Marcus, with a salt and pepper beard and an infectious laugh, was patient with me. "You're doing this for your grandson?" he asked during our first class, using both sign and a voice interpreter. "Yes," I said. "I need to talk to him." Marcus smiled. "Then you'll learn. Love is the best teacher." I practiced constantly. While cooking dinner, I'd sign the ingredients: egg, milk, flour. While driving, I'd sign the colors of cars: red, blue, black. I covered the house with sticky notes labeled in ASL hand shapes: the refrigerator, the couch, the bathroom sink. Noah thought it was hilarious. He'd point at each note and correct my hand shapes when I got them wrong, which was often. I also enrolled Noah in the Idaho School for the Deaf and Blind, in Gooding, about an hour and a half southeast of Boise. It was a long drive, especially in winter, but it was the best option for him. The school had teachers who were fluent in ASL, classrooms designed for deaf children, and a community where Noah wouldn't be the only one who couldn't hear. The first day I dropped him off, I cried the whole drive home, but when I picked him up that afternoon, he was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since Vanessa left. He'd made a friend, a little girl named Sophie who taught him the sign for dinosaur. Money was tight. Teacher pensions don't stretch far, and Noah needed things I hadn't budgeted for. Hearing aids that insurance only partially covered, speech therapy twice a week, special learning tools, gas money for the constant driving. I took a part-time job waitressing at Millie's Diner on Main Street, working Friday and Saturday nights. The tips were decent, and the owner, Millie herself, a 60-year-old woman with bright red lipstick and a thick Southern accent she'd brought from Alabama 30 years ago, was understanding when I had to leave early for Noah's appointments. "Sugar, you're doing the Lord's work with that boy," Millie said one night, while I was refilling ketchup bottles after closing. "His mama ought to be ashamed." I didn't respond. I'd stopped talking about Vanessa. Every time someone asked where she was, I'd just say, "She's figuring some things out." It felt kinder than the truth. I had no idea where my daughter was or if she was even alive. But Noah was thriving. By age 5, he was reading at a 2nd grade level. His teachers at the deaf school said he was gifted, that he absorbed information like a sponge. He became obsessed with how things worked, taking apart old alarm clocks I bought at Goodwill, studying picture books about machines and engines, asking me, in sign, endless questions about why the refrigerator stayed cold or how airplanes flew. I couldn't always answer him, but I'd take him to the library every Saturday, and we'd check out stacks of books. He'd sit on my couch for hours, slowly sounding out words, tracing the pictures with his fingers. One Saturday afternoon in the spring of 2020, Noah was 5 then, I was planting tomatoes in my backyard garden while he played on the porch. He'd been obsessed with bugs lately, catching them in jars and watching them. But when I looked up, he wasn't watching bugs. He was sitting cross-legged with Frank's old laptop, the one I'd kept in the closet because I couldn't bear to get rid of it. "Noah, where'd you get that?" I signed, walking over. He pointed at the house. He'd apparently found it in the hall closet. "Do you know how to use it?" He shook his head, but his eyes were bright with curiosity. He opened it up, the battery was dead, of course, and started pressing keys, fascinated by the way they clicked. Something inside me stirred. An idea, maybe a dangerous one. That night, after Noah went to bed, I plugged in the laptop and wiped it clean. I found free coding tutorials online, websites like Scratch and Code, org designed for kids. The next morning I showed Noah. I signed, slowly. "Want to learn how computers work?" His face lit up like Christmas morning. That was the beginning. By age 7, Noah had taught himself basic HTML and CSS. By 8, he was experimenting with Python. I didn't understand any of it. I was still barely figuring out how to use email. But I supported him however I could. I bought him a better laptop from a pawn shop on Fairview Avenue. I drove him to hackathons at Boise State, sitting in the back of auditoriums while he worked alongside college students and professional developers, his small fingers flying over the keyboard. He never won anything, but he learned. God, he learned so much. And somewhere along the way, I learned too. Not coding. I was hopeless at that. But I learned how to be his advocate, how to fight with school administrators who didn't think a deaf kid belonged in advanced classes, how to connect with other parents in the deaf community, families who'd been navigating this world far longer than me, how to stop seeing Noah's deafness as something to fix and start seeing it as just part of who he was. I also learned how to let go of Vanessa. 3 years after she'd left, I hired a lawyer, a quiet, balding man named Robert Chen, who worked out of a cramped office above a Chinese restaurant on Broadway. I told him the truth. My daughter had abandoned her son, hadn't contacted us in years, and I needed to make sure Noah was legally protected. "You want to file for adoption?" Robert asked, scribbling notes on a yellow legal pad. "Yes. And you've tried to contact the mother?" "Every way I can think of. Her phone's disconnected. Her last known address in Portland came back undeliverable. I've reached out to her old friends on Facebook. None of them have heard from her." Robert nodded. "We'll need to serve her papers at her last known address and publish a notice in the newspaper. If she doesn't respond within 60 days, the court can grant you full parental rights. How much will this cost? He quoted me a number that made my stomach drop. But I thought about Noah upstairs in his room, probably still awake, probably reading some coding manual he'd checked out from the library. I thought about the life he deserved, the stability he needed. Okay, I said, let's do it. The papers were served in August 2021. Vanessa never responded. On October 12th, 2021, a judge in Ada County Family Court granted me full legal custody. Noah was officially my son. I didn't tell him right away. I wasn't sure how. But one night, a few weeks later, we were sitting on the couch watching a nature documentary with subtitles. Noah loved anything about animals. And during a commercial break, he turned to me and signed, "Are you my mom now?" My throat tightened. I signed back, "I'm your grandma. But yes, legally, I'm your mom too. Is that okay?" He thought about it for a moment, his brown eyes serious. Then he nodded and leaned his head against my shoulder. "Good," he signed. I like that better anyway. When Noah turned 9, everything started accelerating. He came to me one Saturday morning in March 2023, his laptop open, a notebook full of sketches and diagrams spread out on the kitchen table. I was making pancakes, my Saturday morning tradition, and he tapped my shoulder to get my attention. "I have an idea," he signed. "What kind of idea?" He started signing rapidly, his hands moving so fast I had to ask him to slow down. The gist: he'd been frustrated at school because none of his hearing classmates knew ASL, and whenever he tried to communicate with them, he had to write everything down or have an interpreter translate. It was slow. It was awkward. It made him feel isolated. He wanted to create an app that could translate ASL into text or speech in real time, and vice versa. Something that would let deaf and hearing people communicate instantly. "That sounds complicated," I signed. "I can do it," he signed back. His jaw was set, determined. "I know I can." I believed him. Over the next year, Noah worked on his app every spare moment. Before school, after school, weekends, holidays. His bedroom became a workspace, the walls covered with flowcharts and code snippets written on sticky notes. He taught himself machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, terms I couldn't even pronounce, let alone understand. I helped however I could, driving him to meetings with mentors in Boise's small tech community, connecting him with people through my church who knew someone who worked in software development, even maxing out a credit card to buy him a better computer when his old one couldn't handle the processing power he needed. Millie gave me extra shifts to pay off the card. I worked until my feet ached and my back screamed. But every time I came home and saw Noah at his desk, his face illuminated by the glow of his screen, his hands moving frantically as he typed, I knew it was worth it. By the time Noah turned 12, he had a working prototype. He called it Bridge Sign. It was incredible. He'd hold up his phone camera, sign something, and the app would display the text and speak it out loud simultaneously. Someone could speak into the phone, and it would translate their words into ASL animations on the screen. It wasn't perfect. There were glitches, delays, occasional mistranslations, but it worked. And it was made by a 12-year-old deaf kid from Boise, Idaho. I uploaded a video of Noah demonstrating Bridge Sign to Facebook, thinking maybe a few of my friends would see it and say something nice. It went viral. Within 48 hours, the video had 200,000 views. By the end of the week, it was on local news. A journalist from the Idaho Statesman came to interview Noah at our house, asking him questions through me. I interpreted about his inspiration, his process, his dreams. Noah sat at our kitchen table, calm and articulate, signing responses that I translated. I just want deaf people and hearing people to understand each other better. Communication shouldn't be this hard. Then the national outlets picked it up. Good Morning America, NPR, Wired magazine. By the time Noah turned 13, Bridge Sign had been downloaded 50,000 times. He'd won a national tech competition for young inventors, beating out high schoolers and even a few college students. The prize was $10,000 and a feature in Forbes' 30 Under 30 education list. My grandson, my shy, brilliant, beautiful boy, was becoming famous, and I was so proud I could barely breathe. But in the back of my mind, there was always a nagging fear, a whisper I tried to ignore. What happens when Vanessa finds out? It happened on a Tuesday in June 2024. Noah was 14. We were sitting in a lawyer's office in downtown Boise, Robert Chen's office, the same man who'd handled the adoption, finalizing the sale of Bridge Sign to a Silicon Valley company called Verto Technologies. They'd reached out 3 months earlier, interested in acquiring the app and scaling it globally. After weeks of negotiations, meetings, video calls with executives in San Francisco, and more legal paperwork than I'd ever seen in my life, we'd agreed on a price: $8 million. I'd cried when I first heard the number, not because of the money, though God knows it was more than I'd ever imagined, but because of what it represented. Validation, proof that my grandson's mind, his heart, his determination could change the world. Robert slid the final contract across his desk. Noah read through it carefully, his eyes scanning every line. He'd insisted on understanding everything. At 14, he was more mature than most adults I knew. "Are you sure?" I signed. "This is your decision." He nodded. Then he picked up the pen and signed his name at the bottom. It was done. We walked out of Robert's office into the bright Boise sunshine, and I felt lighter than I had in years. We went to Noah's favorite restaurant, a burger place on 8th Street called Big Bun, and celebrated with milkshakes and fries. He signed to me about his plans. He wanted to donate some money to the Idaho School for the Deaf, fund scholarships for deaf students studying technology, maybe even start a nonprofit someday. I watched him talk, his hands moving with confidence, his face animated, and I thought, this is what grace looks like. This is what happens when you show up and love someone, even when it's hard. That night, the local news ran a story. Boise teen sells revolutionary app for $8 million. They showed clips of Noah demonstrating Bridge Sign, interviewed his teachers, even got a quote from the CEO of Verto Technologies, praising Noah's genius and innovation. The story aired at 6 p.m. Vanessa called at 6:45. Not me. She didn't have my number anymore. She called Robert Chen's office. Somehow she'd found his information online and left a voicemail saying she needed to speak to him about her son immediately. Robert called me at 7:30. "Mrs. Pearson, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" I asked Robert, my hand gripping the phone so tight my knuckles went white. "Your daughter left a voicemail. She says she needs to discuss Noah's legal guardianship and..." He paused, and I could hear papers rustling. "And I quote, her rightful share of her son's earnings." The kitchen spun. I sat down hard in one of the wooden chairs, the same ones Frank and I had bought at a yard sale 20 years ago. Noah was upstairs in his room, probably reading or coding, completely unaware that the ghost of his past had just materialized. "She has no legal claim," I said, my voice shaking. "You handled the adoption. It's been finalized for almost 3 years." "That's correct. Legally, you are Noah's parent. She signed away her rights, or rather she failed to contest the adoption when given the opportunity. But Mrs. Pearson, she doesn't know that yet. She thinks she still has parental rights. What does she want?" She didn't specify, just said she'd be coming to Boise and wanted to arrange a meeting. She left a phone number. I wrote it down with trembling hands. After I hung up, I sat at that kitchen table for 20 minutes, staring at the number, my mind racing through 6 years of silence, 6 years of birthdays she'd missed, 6 years of Noah asking in different ways, "Where is she?" Does she think about me? Did I do something wrong? I'd always told him the same thing. Your mother loves you. She just wasn't ready to be a parent. That's not your fault. But sitting there with her phone number in my hand, I realized I'd been lying. Not to protect Noah. To protect myself. Because the truth was uglier. Vanessa had chosen herself over her son. She'd chosen bars and freedom, and whatever life she thought she deserved over the beautiful, brilliant boy upstairs who'd needed her. And now she was coming back? I didn't sleep that night. I kept imagining different scenarios, different conversations, different ways this could go wrong. Around 3 a.m., I got out of bed, went to my filing cabinet, and pulled out the adoption papers. I read through them again, Robert's words echoing in my head. Legally, you are Noah's parent, but laws and paperwork meant nothing compared to the fact that Vanessa had given birth to him, that somewhere in Noah's heart, there might be a tiny flame still burning for his mother, waiting for her to come back and explain why she'd left. I was terrified that flame would consume everything we'd built. She showed up on a Saturday morning, 3 days later. I was washing dishes when I saw the BMW pull into my driveway. It was silver, sleek, obviously a rental, the kind of car Vanessa could never afford on her own. She stepped out wearing skinny jeans, heeled boots, and a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. Her hair was different, professionally highlighted, styled in loose waves. She looked like she'd walked out of a catalog. She looked nothing like the exhausted, desperate woman who'd abandoned her son on my porch 6 years ago. I dried my hands on a dish towel and went to the door. I didn't open it immediately. I just stood there, watching through the window as she checked her reflection in the car's side mirror, adjusting her hair. The casualness of it made my blood boil. When I finally opened the door, she jumped slightly, then smiled. That same practiced smile from the voicemail. "Hi, Mom." Vanessa. We stood there for a moment, the threshold between us like a canyon. She shifted her weight, and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Good. She should be nervous. "Can I come in?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to slam the door in her face, but I stepped aside and let her enter. She walked into the living room like she was touring a museum, looking at everything with this strange, detached curiosity. Her eyes landed on the photos I'd hung over the years. Noah at his first day of school at the Idaho School for the Deaf. Noah winning his first tech competition. Noah and me at the state capitol building when he'd been invited to demonstrate bridge sign for the governor. "He's gotten so big," she said softly. "He's 14. Children tend to grow." She flinched at my tone but didn't respond. Instead, she sat down on the couch, Frank's old couch that sagged in the middle, and folded her hands in her lap. "Is he here?" "He's upstairs. Can I see him?" "Not yet. We need to talk first." She nodded, looking down. For a moment, she almost looked ashamed. Almost. "Mom, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "Vanessa, I'm beyond angry. You left your 3-year-old son on my doorstep and disappeared for 6 years. No calls, no letters, no birthday cards. Nothing. And now you show up because you saw on the news that he made money? That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" She looked up and her eyes were wet. "Because I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. And I want to fix it." I sat down in the armchair across from her, my jaw clenched. "You can't fix 6 years, Vanessa." "I know, but I can try." She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara. "After I left, everything fell apart. The job in Portland didn't work out. I was in a bad place, drinking too much, making stupid decisions. I was so ashamed of myself, of what I'd done, that I couldn't face calling you. Every day I told myself I'd call tomorrow, and then tomorrow would come, and I'd find another excuse. You could have called anyway. I know. I should have. But I was scared. Scared you'd tell me what a terrible mother I was. Scared Noah would hate me. Scared I'd ruined everything so badly There was no coming back from it. She took a shaky breath. About 2 years ago, I hit rock bottom. I was living in Seattle, barely making rent, drinking every night. One morning I woke up in a hospital. Alcohol poisoning. The doctor told me if I kept going, I'd be dead within a year. She paused and I waited. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her the way I'd comforted her through scraped knees and broken hearts when she was young. But another part, the part that had spent 6 years raising her son, stayed frozen. I checked into rehab, she continued. Stayed there for 90 days. Then I moved to Spokane and started going to AA meetings. Got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. Started therapy. I've been sober for 18 months, Mom. 18 months. Congratulations, I said. And I meant it. But my voice was still cold. I wanted to contact you so many times. But my sponsor said I needed to work on myself first, to make sure I was stable before I tried to reconnect. And then last week, I saw the news story about Noah, about the app, about the $8 million. She looked at me earnestly. I'm not here for the money, Mom. I'm here because seeing him on TV made me realize I've wasted 6 years of his life, and I want to be part of it again. I want to be his mother. The word hit me like a slap. Mother. You gave up that right, I said quietly. What? 3 years ago, I filed for adoption. You were served papers at your last known address in Portland. You never responded. The court terminated your parental rights. Legally, I am Noah's mother now. The color drained from Vanessa's face. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You adopted him? Yes, without telling me. I tried to tell you. You were unreachable. You disconnected your phone. Your mail came back undeliverable. I did everything legally required, Vanessa. You had 60 days to respond. You didn't. She stood up abruptly, her hands shaking. You stole my son. I raised your son. There's a difference. You had no right. I had every right. I stood too, my voice rising. You abandoned him. You left him on my porch like he was a burden you couldn't wait to be rid of. I spent 6 years learning sign language, driving hours every day to get him to school, working extra jobs to afford his therapy and equipment, fighting with administrators and insurance companies and everyone else who tried to tell me he couldn't do something because he was deaf. I was there for every nightmare, every achievement, every moment you should have been there for. So don't you dare tell me I didn't have the right. Vanessa's face crumpled. She sank back onto the couch, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I stood there, breathing hard, my heart pounding. I'd imagined this confrontation 1,000 times, but I'd never expected it to hurt this much, because underneath my anger was grief. Grief for the daughter I'd raised, the one I thought I knew, the one who'd become someone I didn't recognize. After a long moment, I sat back down. My voice was softer now. Vanessa, I'm glad you're sober. I'm glad you're getting help. But you can't just walk back into Noah's life and expect everything to be fine. He's spent 6 years learning to live without you. Does he hate me? No, he doesn't hate you. But he doesn't remember you either. When you showed up that morning, he didn't recognize you. She let out a small broken sound. If you want to be part of his life, if you genuinely want that, then it has to be on his terms. Not yours, not mine, his. She nodded, wiping at her face. Can I see him? Please? I hesitated. Every instinct I had screamed to say no, to protect Noah from this potential hurt. But I also knew that decision wasn't mine to make. Noah deserved the chance to meet his mother, to decide for himself what relationship, if any, he wanted with her. Wait here, I said. I climbed the stairs slowly, my legs heavy. Noah's door was closed, music vibrating faintly through the wood. He liked to feel the bass through his floor. I knocked twice, our signal. and he opened it a moment later. "What's wrong?" He signed immediately, reading my face. I took a breath. "Someone is here to see you. Someone from your past." "Who?" There was no easy way to say it. "Your birth mother. Vanessa." She came back. Noah's expression didn't change for several seconds. Then his eyes widened slightly, and he stepped back. "Why?" "She wants to talk to you. To see you. But you don't have to if you don't want to. This is your choice." He stood there, processing. Noah had always been thoughtful, deliberate. He didn't make impulsive decisions. Finally, he signed. "What does she want?" "To apologize. To explain why she left. Maybe to be part of your life again. Do you trust her?" The question broke my heart, because the honest answer was no. I didn't trust Vanessa not to hurt him again, but I also knew I couldn't let my fear make decisions for him. "I don't know her anymore." I signed. "But I trust you. And I'll be right there with you the whole time." Noah thought about it for another moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll meet her." We walked downstairs together, his hand in mine. When we entered the living room, Vanessa stood up from the couch, her face a mixture of hope and terror. Noah stopped several feet away, studying her. I'd seen him analyze problems with that same intense focus, breaking down complex code, figuring out how to make bridge signs algorithms more efficient. He was trying to reconcile the stranger in front of him with whatever fragments of memory he still carried. Vanessa took a tentative step forward. "Hi, Noah. I don't know if you remember me. She stopped because Noah had started signing. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. "I know who you are." Vanessa looked at me, confused. "What did he say?" I translated, my voice neutral. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears again. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I left. I made a terrible mistake. I wasn't ready to be your mom. But I'm better now. I'm sober. I'm in therapy. And I want to make things right." I translated, watching Noah's face carefully. He showed no emotion. When I finished, Noah signed something else. "Why now? Why not last year, or the year before, or any of the other years I waited for you?" I translated. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked down. "Because I was ashamed. Because I was broken. Because I didn't think I deserved to be in your life until I fixed myself. And you're fixed now?" Noah signed, his expression hard. "I'm trying to be. I'm not perfect, but I'm better." Noah stood there for a long moment, then signed something that made my heart clench. "Did you see the news? About the money?" Vanessa's face went pale. "Yes, but that's not why." "Are you sure?" "Noah, I swear. Because it's funny." Noah signed, his hands moving faster now, sharper. "You spent 6 years not calling, not writing, not caring. And then I sell an app and suddenly you remember I exist. That's not love. That's greed." I translated every word, my voice cracking slightly. Vanessa looked like she'd been punched. "That's not true," she whispered. "I've thought about you every single day." "Then why didn't you call?" Noah's hands were almost violent now. "Why didn't you send a letter? Why didn't you fight for me?" "Because I was broken." Vanessa's voice rose. "Because I was a drunk and a mess, and I didn't want you to see me like that. I left to protect you." "You left to protect yourself," Noah signed. "Don't lie and call it love." The room went silent. Vanessa stood there, tears streaming down her face, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find words. Noah's jaw was set, his eyes hard in a way I'd never seen before. He looked so much older than 14. Finally, Vanessa turned to me. "Mom, please, tell him I'm telling the truth. Tell him I care about him." But before I could respond, Noah signed something else. "I don't have a mother. I have a grandmother who learned sign language for me, who drove me to school every day, who worked 2 jobs to pay for my equipment, who believed in me when no one else did. That's my mom, not you." I translated, my eyes burning with tears. Noah looked at Vanessa one more time, then turned and walked upstairs. A moment later, his door closed. Vanessa sank onto the couch, sobbing. I've lost him. I've lost him forever. I sat down next to her, and despite everything, despite the anger and hurt and betrayal, I put my arm around her shoulders because she was still my daughter, because I remembered holding her when she was Noah's age, telling her everything would be okay, believing the world would be kinder to her than it had been. You haven't lost him, I said quietly, but you have to earn him back. And that's going to take time, a lot of time. She cried into my shoulder, and I held her the way I used to when she was small, before life got complicated, before she made choices that hurt everyone, including herself. And upstairs, I knew Noah was sitting in his room, probably crying too, grieving the mother he'd wanted, and the one he'd gotten instead. Vanessa stayed in Boise for 2 weeks. She got a room at a Holiday Inn on Broadway and called me every day, asking if she could see Noah again. Each time I asked Noah, and each time he said no. But on the 5th day, something changed. Noah came downstairs while I was making dinner, spaghetti with marinara sauce, his favorite, and signed, "Can you ask her a question for me?" What question? Ask her if she's told anyone else about the money. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why? Because if she's really here for me, then no one else would know. But if she's here for the money, she probably told people. Maybe even asked someone for advice on how to get it. My brilliant, perceptive boy. I called Vanessa that evening and asked the question as casually as I could. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, I mentioned it to a couple people. My AA sponsor, a friend in Spokane. Why? Just curious, I said, my stomach sinking. When I told Noah, he nodded like he'd expected it. She told people. He signed, which means she thought about the money enough to discuss it. That's not just wanting to reconnect. Maybe she was just processing her feelings, I suggested, playing devil's advocate even though I agreed with him. Or maybe she was figuring out how to get a cut. Noah signed. I want to talk to a lawyer, without her knowing. That night, I called Robert Chen at home. I explained the situation. Vanessa's return, her claims that she wanted to reconnect, Noah's suspicions. Robert listened carefully. The good news is, she has no legal claim to Noah or his money. The adoption is airtight. But Mrs. Pearson, if she decides to fight this, if she hires her own lawyer, things could get messy. She could claim you manipulated the adoption process, that she wasn't properly notified. It would likely fail, but it could drag on for months and cost you tens of thousands in legal fees. What should I do? Document everything. Every conversation, every text message, every interaction, and keep Noah's money in a trust account that only you and he can access. Make sure there's a paper trail showing how every dollar is spent and saved. I thanked him and hung up feeling sick. This was exactly what I'd feared, that Vanessa's return would turn into a legal battle, that Noah would get caught in the middle of adult problems he shouldn't have to face. But the next morning, something unexpected happened. Vanessa showed up unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there in jeans and a plain sweatshirt, her hair in a ponytail. No makeup. She looked tired, real. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Can we sit?" We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd learned my first signs with Noah, where he'd eaten thousands of meals, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays that became extraordinary just because we were together. Vanessa folded her hands on the table. "I talked to my sponsor last night, for a long time, and she helped me realize something I didn't want to admit." "What's that?" "Part of why I came back was because of the money." She looked up, and her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. "Not all of it. I did miss Noah. I have thought about him constantly, but when I saw that $8 million, something in my brain went. That could solve all your problems. That could set you up for life. And I convinced myself I deserved some of it, because I gave birth to him, because he wouldn't exist without me. I didn't say anything. I just waited. But that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. She took a shaky breath. I gave up my right to be his mother when I left him on your porch. I gave up my right to his success when I chose myself over him. And no amount of apologies or therapy or sobriety changes that. Vanessa, let me finish, please. She wiped at her eyes. I'm going back to Spokane tomorrow. I'm not going to ask for money. I'm not going to hire a lawyer. I'm not going to fight you for custody or visitation or anything else. You're his mom. You've earned that. And if someday, when he's older, if he decides he wants to know me, wants me in his life, I'll be there. But only if he wants it. Only on his terms. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. That's very mature of you. I'm 6 years too late on the mature decisions. She managed a weak smile. But better late than never, right? We sat there in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me for 6 years. Why, Vanessa? Why did you really leave? She looked down at her hands. Because I was terrified. Terrified I'd fail him the way I felt like I'd failed at everything else. Terrified I wasn't good enough, smart enough, patient enough to raise a deaf child. Terrified I'd screw him up so badly, he'd end up hating me anyway. So I ran. And in trying to avoid failing him, I failed him in the worst possible way. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're right. You did fail him. But you're not failing him now. Walking away again, letting him heal, giving him space. That's the first truly selfless thing you've done for him. She squeezed my hand, crying silently. But, Vanessa, I continued, if you're serious about being available if he wants you someday, you need to stay sober. You need to keep working on yourself. Because if you relapse, if you spiral again, and he reaches out and you're not there, that will destroy him worse than the first abandonment. I know. I promise. I swear on everything I have. We talked for another hour. About her life in Spokane, her job, her meetings, about Noah's childhood, all the moments she'd missed. I showed her photos on my phone. Noah at age 4, covered in paint during art class. Noah at 7, grinning while holding a trophy from a coding competition. Noah last month, shaking hands with the CEO of Verto Technologies. She looked at each one with this mix of pride and grief that broke my heart. Finally, she stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. Mom, thank you for everything you've done for him, for being the mother I couldn't be. You're welcome. But Vanessa, don't give up on yourself. You're still young. You still have time to build a life you're proud of. She nodded, hugged me briefly, and left. I watched her car pull away, and this time, it felt different. Not like an abandonment, like a release. That night, I told Noah everything. We sat on his bed while I signed the whole conversation, translating Vanessa's words as honestly as I could. When I finished, Noah sat quietly for a long time, processing. Finally, he signed. Do you think she meant it? About not wanting the money? I think she did. I think she finally realized what actually matters. Will I ever want to see her again? I don't know, honey. That's something you'll figure out as you get older. There's no rush. He nodded, then signed something that made my heart swell. I'm glad I have you. You're the best mom I could ask for. I pulled him into a hug, and he let me hold him even though he was 14 and too cool for long hugs. We stayed like that for a while, just breathing together, grateful for the small miracle that had brought us to each other. But as I lay in bed that night, something nagged at me. A small detail from my conversation with Vanessa. Something about the way she'd said, deserve some of it. Some of it. Not all. Just some. I told myself I was being paranoid. That Vanessa had been genuine. That she really was walking away. But somewhere deep in my gut, a small voice whispered, this isn't over yet. I was right. 3 days after Vanessa left, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man's voice said, "Mrs. Pearson, my name is David Lattimore. I'm an attorney representing Vanessa Pearson in a matter concerning her son, Noah Pearson." My blood went cold. I thought she wasn't pursuing legal action. Ms. Pearson has reconsidered. She's filing a motion to contest the adoption on grounds of inadequate notification and to seek partial financial compensation for the emotional damages caused by being separated from her child. She wasn't separated. She left him. That's a matter for the courts to decide. You'll be receiving formal paperwork within the week. I'd suggest you retain counsel. He hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, feeling like the floor had opened up beneath me. She'd lied. The apology, the tears, the promises, all lies. She was coming for the money after all. And this time, she'd brought a lawyer. I went upstairs and found Noah at his computer, working on a new project. Something about improving bridge signs' accuracy in low-light conditions. When I tapped his shoulder, he looked up and immediately saw my face. What happened? He signed. I told him. I watched his expression shift from confusion to hurt to something harder, colder. When I finished, he stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the street below. After a long moment, he turned back and signed. She's never going to stop, is she? I don't know. We need to end this. Permanently. How? He looked at me with those brown eyes that had seen too much for 14 years and signed something that made me realize my grandson wasn't just brilliant with code. He was brilliant. Period. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Noah's idea was simple, brilliant, and terrifying. He wanted to give Vanessa money. Not all of it. Not even close. But enough to satisfy whatever demons were chasing her. Enough to make the lawsuit go away. Enough to, as he signed it, buy our peace. I stared at him, stunned. Absolutely not. She doesn't deserve a single cent. I know. He signed back. But this isn't about what she deserves. It's about what we need. If we fight her in court, it'll take months, maybe years. It'll cost us money, time, and energy. And even if we win, which we will, she'll still be out there, angry and desperate. She might try again, or she might do something worse. Like what? Go to the media. Tell them I'm a disabled kid being exploited by my grandmother. Tell them you stole me from her. It doesn't matter if it's true. People will believe it because it's dramatic. And then Bridge Sign's reputation gets damaged. The deaf community loses trust in the app. Everything I built gets poisoned. I sat down on his bed, my head spinning. He was right. I hated that he was right. But he was. Vanessa had already proven she was willing to lie, willing to manipulate. And in the court of public opinion, the narrative of a mother separated from her successful child would play better than the truth. How much? I signed, my hands heavy. $500,000, structured as a settlement for emotional distress, with a permanent, no-contact clause. She takes the money. She gives up all parental rights forever. And she agrees never to speak publicly about me or the family. If she breaks any part of the agreement, she has to return every penny. That's a lot of money, Noah. It's 6% of what I made, and it's worth it to never have to think about her again. I looked at my grandson, this 14-year-old boy who'd been forced to grow up too fast, who'd learned that family wasn't always about blood, who was now making decisions no child should have to make. And I realized he wasn't being generous. He was being strategic, practical. He was protecting us. Are you sure? I signed. He nodded. I'm sure. But Grandma, I need you to promise me something. What? If she takes the money and then comes back later, if she breaks the agreement or tries to contact me, you won't give her another chance. You won't feel sorry for her. You'll enforce the contract and you'll protect us. Promise me. I pulled him into a hug. This boy who'd somehow become wiser than me, and signed against his shoulder. I promise. Robert Chen thought Noah's idea was insane. Mrs. Pearson, with all due respect to Noah's intelligence, he's 14 years old. He shouldn't be making legal decisions based on fear. It's not fear, I said. We were sitting in Robert's office, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds. It's wisdom. He's thinking long-term. And honestly, Robert, I think he's right. If we fight this, win or lose, it damages all of us. Robert leaned back in his chair, studying me. You know what message this sends, don't you? It tells Vanessa that if she makes enough noise, threatens enough legal action, she gets paid. No, it tells her that her son is merciful, that even after everything she's done, he's willing to give her something she doesn't deserve so that both of them can move on. That's not weakness, that's grace. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You've been going to church more lately, haven't you?" I smiled. Maybe. Is it that obvious? A little, he sighed. All right. If this is what Noah wants, I'll draft the settlement agreement. But Mrs. Pearson, I need you to understand, if Vanessa's lawyer is smart, they'll push for more. They'll see this as an opening and try to negotiate up. Then we hold firm. $500,000, take it or leave it. And if they leave it, we go to court and destroy her case. Robert nodded slowly. Okay, I'll reach out to David Lattimore today. The negotiation took 3 weeks. Vanessa's lawyer did exactly what Robert predicted. He countered with $2 million, claiming that amount represented a fair portion of Noah's earnings given Vanessa's biological connection and the trauma of separation. Robert responded with a detailed breakdown of every expense I'd incurred raising Noah, every hour I'd worked, every sacrifice I'd made. He attached receipts, bank statements, testimony from Noah's teachers. The bill came to over $300,000. Your client abandoned her child, Robert wrote in the response. My client raised him. If we're calculating who's owed what, Mrs. Grace Pearson is owed far more than she's asking. It was a brilliant move. Suddenly, Vanessa wasn't the victim asking for compensation. She was the debtor who'd failed to pay her share. Lattimore went quiet for 5 days. Then he came back. $1 million. Final offer. Robert called me. He's bluffing. He knows their case is weak. I can push back. No, I said. Tell him $650,000, and that's our final offer. Take it by Friday, or we'll see them in court. Friday came. At 4:47 p.m., Lattimore called Robert and accepted. The settlement was structured exactly as Noah had designed it. $650,000 paid in a lump sum to Vanessa, in exchange for permanent termination of all parental rights, a lifetime no-contact order, and a confidentiality agreement preventing her from discussing Noah or the family publicly. If she violated any clause, she'd owe back the full amount, plus interest and legal fees. Robert brought the papers to our house on a Tuesday evening. Noah and I sat at the kitchen table while he explained each section. When he was done, he looked at Noah. This is your decision, son. You don't have to do this. We can fight. Noah signed. I know, but I don't want to spend the next year fighting someone who should have loved me. I want to move forward. This is how I do that. Robert translated, his voice thick with emotion. Then he slid the papers across the table. Noah picked up a pen and signed his name. Just like that, his mother was gone. Legally, permanently, irrevocably. Vanessa signed the papers the next day. I wasn't there. I didn't want to be. But Robert called to confirm it was done. She cried while signing, he said, for what that's worth. It's worth nothing, I said. And I meant it. The money transferred the following week. Vanessa left Boise the same day. I didn't know where she went, and I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was that she was gone, and she couldn't hurt Noah anymore. But something strange happened in the weeks after. Noah became quieter, withdrawn. He'd spend hours in his room, working on coding projects or reading. But whenever I'd check on him, He'd have this distant look in his eyes, like he was somewhere else. One night, about a month after the settlement, I brought him hot chocolate, our winter tradition, even though it was summer, and sat on the edge of his bed. "Talk to me," I signed. "What's going on in that head of yours?" He set down his laptop and signed slowly. "Do you think I did the right thing? With your mother?" He nodded. "I think you did what you needed to do to protect yourself, and I'm proud of you for that. But what if she needed the money for something good? What if she uses it to stay sober, to build a better life? What if I just enabled her to run away again instead of forcing her to face consequences?" I took his hands in mine. "Noah, listen to me. You are not responsible for fixing your mother. You're not responsible for her choices, her sobriety, or her life. The only person you're responsible for is yourself. And you made a choice that gave you peace. That's not enabling, that's survival. But what if she comes back someday, and I regret this? What if she gets sober for real, becomes a better person, and I've cut her out forever? Then that's her consequence to live with. She had 6 years to be your mother. She chose not to. You gave her more grace than most people would have by giving her anything at all. If she wastes that grace, that's on her, not you." He looked down at our hands. "I just don't want to become like her. Someone who runs away when things get hard." My heart broke a little. "Baby, you're nothing like her. You didn't run. You strategized. You made a hard choice to protect your future. That's the opposite of running." He nodded, but I could tell he was still struggling. And I realized something. Noah didn't just need reassurance. He needed permission. Permission to feel conflicted. Permission to be angry and sad and relieved all at once. Permission to be 14 years old and not have all the answers. "You know what I think?" I signed. "I think you're allowed to feel however you feel about this. You're allowed to wonder if you did the right thing. You're allowed to hope she gets better, even while knowing you can't be part of that process. You're allowed to be complicated. That's what makes you human." He smiled a little at that. "When did you get so wise?" "When I started raising a genius who asks impossible questions." He laughed, a real laugh, and some of the weight seemed to lift from his shoulders. That night, after Noah went to sleep, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had happened. About Vanessa showing up in her rental BMW. About Noah's brilliant solution. About the way pain and grace could exist in the same space. And I thought about faith, not the kind preached from pulpits, but the quiet kind. The kind that shows up in learning sign language at 53. The kind that believes a deaf child can change the world. The kind that forgives even when forgiveness feels impossible. I didn't know if Vanessa would ever find that faith, but I knew Noah and I had found it in each other. 6 months later, on a cold January morning, I was shoveling snow from our driveway when a letter arrived. It was addressed to me, postmarked from Portland, Oregon. No return address. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten in Vanessa's looping cursive. "Mom, I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I know I signed papers saying I wouldn't. But I needed to tell you something, and I'm willing to pay back the money, if it means I get to say this. Thank you. Thank you for raising my son when I couldn't. Thank you for giving him the life I was too broken to provide. Thank you for loving him better than I ever could have. I'm living in Portland now. I got a job managing a coffee shop. I'm still going to meetings, still seeing my therapist. I celebrated 2 years sober last week. I didn't drink. I didn't call anyone. I just sat in my apartment and thought about Noah, about the app he created, about the difference he's making in the world. And I felt proud. Not because I had anything to do with his success. I know I didn't. But because he exists. Because despite everything I did wrong, something right came from me. I used some of the settlement money to pay off my debts. The rest I put in a savings account. I don't know what I'll do with it yet. Maybe donate it to a deaf school someday. Maybe use it to help other mothers who are struggling the way I was. I just know I don't want to waste it the way I wasted so many other things. I think about Noah every day. I wonder if he's happy. I hope he is. I hope he knows how much he was loved by you, even when he wasn't loved by me. You don't have to write back. You don't have to forgive me. I just needed you to know that your sacrifice wasn't invisible. I saw it, and I'm grateful. Tell Noah, if you think it's okay, that his mother is sorry, and that she hopes someday when he's ready, he might understand that loving someone sometimes means letting them go. Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times, standing in the snow, tears freezing on my cheeks. That evening I showed it to Noah. He read it silently, his face unreadable. When he finished, he folded it carefully and handed it back to me. What do you think? I signed. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I think she's trying. I think maybe she finally understands. But I also think I'm not ready to respond. Maybe someday, but not now. That's fair. What will you do with the letter? Keep it, in case you change your mind someday. He nodded. Then he signed something that surprised me. Do you think we should pray for her? I smiled. We'd started going to St. Mary's Catholic Church together a few months earlier. Not every Sunday, but sometimes, when we needed the quiet ritual of Mass, the comfort of something bigger than ourselves. Noah had been curious about it, about the stained glass and the incense and the way people knelt in prayer. He'd started learning about Catholicism, reading books, asking questions. He said he liked the idea of redemption, of second chances, of grace being given even when it wasn't earned. I think that would be nice, I signed. So we did. We sat together on the couch, and I prayed out loud while Noah closed his eyes, and we asked God, if he was listening, to help Vanessa find peace, to help her stay sober, to help her forgive herself the way we were trying to forgive her. When we finished, Noah opened his eyes and signed. Do you think God hears prayers in sign language? I think God hears everything, even the things we don't say out loud. Noah turned 15 that spring. We celebrated with a small party at our house. Just a few friends from the deaf school, Robert Chen and his wife, Millie from the diner. We ate cake and played games, and Noah showed off his newest project, an updated version of bridge sign that could now translate 30 different sign languages, not just ASL. You're changing the world, kid, Robert said, clapping Noah on the shoulder. Noah signed back. I'm just trying to help people understand each other. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Noah was in bed, I sat in my backyard looking at the stars, the same stars that had been there the night Vanessa left Noah on my porch 7 years ago. The same stars that had witnessed all our struggles and triumphs and moments of grace. I thought about how much had changed, how I'd gone from a lonely widow counting down the days until retirement to a mother again, raising a child I'd never expected, but couldn't imagine living without. How Noah had gone from a scared, silent 3-year-old to a confident, brilliant young man who was literally changing how the world communicated. And I thought about Vanessa, about the daughter I'd raised and lost and maybe, someday, might find again in some new form. About how loving someone didn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it meant letting go and trusting that grace would find them anyway. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Mrs. Pearson. This is Sophie, Noah's friend from school. I just wanted to say thank you for always driving us to robotics club and for being the best deaf mom I know. You're amazing. I smiled, tears in my eyes, and texted back, thank you, sweetheart. That means the world to me. Another text came through, this one from Millie. Grace, you left your sweater at the diner. I'll keep it behind the counter. Also, you raised a damn fine young man. Frank would be proud. Then one from Robert. Noah told me tonight he wants to create a scholarship fund for deaf students studying computer science. That kid's heart is as big as his brain. You did good, Grace. I sat there reading the messages, feeling overwhelmed by the love and community we'd built. This was family, not the one I'd been born into or the one I'd expected, but the one I'd chosen and fought for and earned through 7 years of showing up every single day. My phone buzzed one more time. This one from Noah, even though he was just upstairs. "Grandma, are you still awake?" I texted back, "Yes. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to say I love you, and thank you for everything. I know I don't say it enough. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. I know. I can tell. Good night." Good night. I looked up at the stars again, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt complete peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. Not because all our problems were solved. They weren't. But because I knew, with absolute certainty, that Noah and I were going to be okay. That whatever came next, we'd face it together. And that was enough. 3 years later, when Noah was 17, I got another letter from Vanessa. This one was different. It included photos, Vanessa standing in front of a small coffee shop with Vanessa's Cafe painted on the window. Vanessa at an AA meeting, receiving a 5-year sobriety chip. Vanessa volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching job skills to other recovering addicts. The letter was shorter this time. "Mom, I'm doing better. Really better. I wanted you to see. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know that the second chance you gave me, the money, the grace, I didn't waste it. Tell Noah I'm proud of him. Tell him his mother finally grew up. Tell him I understand if he never wants to know me, but I'm here if he ever changes his mind." With love and gratitude, Vanessa, I showed the letter to Noah. He was 17 now, taller than me, already accepted to MIT on a full scholarship to study computer science. He read the letter, looked at the photos, and set them down on the kitchen table. "What do you think?" I signed. He picked up one of the photos, Vanessa holding her sobriety chip, smiling genuinely for the first time in any picture I'd seen of her in years. "I think," he signed slowly, "that maybe someday I'd like to meet her. Not now, not soon, but someday, when I'm ready, just to see who she became, just to understand. And if you're never ready, then I'll know I gave her the best gift I could, a chance to start over. And that's enough." I pulled him into a hug. This young man who taught me more about forgiveness and grace than any sermon ever could. "You're a good person, Noah," I signed. "Better than most adults I know. I learned from the best," he signed back. 4 years after that, Noah graduated from MIT with dual degrees in computer science and human-computer interaction. He was 21 years old. I sat in the audience at graduation, crying behind my sunglasses, watching him walk across the stage to receive his diploma. After the ceremony, we went out to dinner at a fancy restaurant in Cambridge. Noah ordered champagne. He could drink legally now, though he rarely did. And we toasted to his future. "What's next?" I signed. I got a job offer from Verto Technologies. They want me to head up their accessibility division, build tools for disabled users. I'd be working in San Francisco. My heart sank a little. San Francisco was 3,000 miles from Boise. But I smiled and signed. "That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Come with me," he signed suddenly. "Move to California. I'm going to buy a house, something with a guest suite for you. I don't want to do this without you. Noah, you're 21. You don't need your grandmother following you across the country. I don't need you to. I want you to. You've spent 21 years taking care of me. Let me take care of you for a change." I started crying again, right there in the restaurant, and Noah reached across the table and took my hand. "Please, Grandma. You're my family. The only family I need. Let's build the next chapter together." So we did. We moved to San Francisco that fall. Noah bought a beautiful house in the Sunset District with views of the Pacific Ocean. My suite had its own bathroom, a small kitchen, and a balcony where I could drink coffee and watch the fog roll in every morning. Noah thrived at Verto. Within 2 years, he'd developed a suite of accessibility tools that became industry standard, not just for deaf users, but for blind users, mobility-impaired users, neurodivergent users. BridgeSign had evolved into something bigger, something that connected every kind of disability community with the tools they needed to communicate and thrive. He won awards, gave TED Talks, was profiled in magazines and newspapers, and through it all, he stayed humble, grounded, kind, and I was there for every moment, not managing his life or making his decisions, but supporting him the way you support someone you love, quietly, steadily, always. On a Tuesday afternoon in October, 10 years after Vanessa had first shown up in that rental BMW, my phone rang. Unknown number, Portland area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Mom. The voice was shaky, older but unmistakably Vanessa's. It's me. I know I'm not supposed to call. I know I'm violating the agreement, but I needed to tell you something. My heart raced. Are you okay? I'm dying, Mom. Her voice cracked. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors say I have maybe 3 months. The world tilted. I sat down hard on my couch, gripping the phone. Vanessa, I don't want money. I don't want to disrupt Noah's life. I just wanted to tell you before I go. Thank you. Thank you for everything you did for my son. Thank you for being the mother I couldn't be. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I was crying now, messy and ugly. Where are you? Hospice in Portland. It's nice, peaceful. She took a shaky breath. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think God forgives people like me? People who make terrible mistakes? I thought about all the Sunday masses, all the prayers, all the times I'd asked that same question about different sins, different failures. And I thought about Father Miguel at St. Mary's, who'd once told me, grace isn't earned. That's what makes it grace. Yes, I said firmly. I know he does. And Vanessa? Yeah. I forgive you too, for all of it. She sobbed on the other end of the line. Thank you. God, thank you. Do you want to talk to Noah? I can't promise he'll say yes, but I can ask. There was a long pause. Then, no, I don't want to burden him with this. I don't want his last memory of me to be me dying. Just tell him. Tell him I loved him, even when I couldn't show it. Tell him I always loved him. I will. And Mom? Yes? I'm sorry for everything. I'm so sorry. I know, baby. I know. We talked for another 20 minutes about her cafe, which she'd sold when she got sick. About her friends in AA who'd become family. About the women she'd mentored at the shelter, helping them find their way out of addiction the way she'd found hers. I didn't waste it, she said quietly. The life you gave me back. I made something good out of it. I'm glad, I said. I'm so glad. When we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I went to find Noah. He was in his home office working on code, his face illuminated by 3 monitors. I tapped his shoulder. When he turned, he immediately saw my face. What happened? I told him. Everything. Vanessa's call, her cancer, her message. He listened without moving, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and stared at his hands. Finally, he signed, I want to go see her. Are you sure? Yes, she's my mother. She was terrible at it, but she was. And I don't want her to die thinking I hate her, because I don't. I'm angry. I'm hurt, but I don't hate her. Okay, I'll book us flights to Portland. No, he shook his head. Just me. This is something I need to do alone. Noah flew to Portland the next morning. He was gone for 3 days. He didn't call or text, and I didn't push him. This was his journey, his closure. All I could do was wait and pray. When he finally came home, he looked exhausted, but somehow lighter. We sat in the living room, and he told me everything in sign language, his hands moving slowly, carefully. He'd spent 2 days with Vanessa at the hospice. They'd talked through an ASL interpreter she'd hired specifically for his visit. She'd apologized, not defensively, not with excuses, but genuinely. She'd told him about her journey, her mistakes, her regrets. She'd showed him photos of her cafe, her sobriety chips, letters from women she'd helped, and she'd asked him to forgive her. "Did you?" I signed. Noah nodded. Not because she deserved it, but because that I deserved to let go of the anger. I told her I forgave her and Mom, Grandma. He corrected himself, still sometimes confused about which name to use. When I said it, I felt something break open inside me, like I'd been carrying this weight for so long. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be light. "I'm proud of you," I signed. She told me she loved me, that she always had, even when she couldn't show it. And she said the best thing she ever did was leave me with you. Because if she'd stayed, if she'd tried to raise me while she was that broken, it would have destroyed us both. Do you believe her? I think I do. I think she finally told me the truth. Not the pretty version, the real version. And it was enough. How much time does she have left? The doctor said weeks, maybe a month. Do you want to go back? He shook his head. We said everything we needed to say. She told me she wants to be cremated and her ashes spread in the Columbia River. She said she doesn't want a funeral, just wants to disappear quietly, the way she lived most of her life. I think I'm going to respect that. I held him while he cried. My grandson, my son, grieving the mother who'd given birth to him, and the mother who'd raised him, and the complicated, painful space between those two truths. Vanessa died 3 weeks later, on a quiet Thursday morning. Her hospice nurse called to tell me, said Vanessa had passed peacefully in her sleep, that her last words had been, "Tell Noah he was always enough." I passed the message to Noah. He nodded, signed thank you, and went to his room. I didn't see him for the rest of the day. The next morning, he came downstairs with a notebook. Inside were pages and pages of code, diagrams, notes. A new project. What's this? I signed. A scholarship fund. For children in foster care, children with disabilities, children whose parents couldn't raise them, but who have potential. I want to call it the Vanessa Pearson Second Chances Fund, because everyone deserves one, even people who screw up the first time. I looked at the plans, detailed, thorough, generous, and I realized that this was Noah's final gift to his mother. Not money, not forgiveness, but legacy, a way to turn her pain into someone else's hope. She would have liked that. I signed. I think so too. 5 years later, the Vanessa Pearson Second Chances Fund had given scholarships to over 200 students. Kids from broken homes, kids in foster care, kids with disabilities who'd been told they couldn't succeed. The fund paid for their education, their equipment, their therapy, their dreams. Noah ran it personally, interviewing every applicant, reading every essay. He said it kept him grounded, reminded him where he came from, why his work mattered. And me. I was 73 now, slowing down but still here, still watching Noah change the world, still grateful for every single day I'd been given with him. One Sunday morning, we went to Mass at St. Anne's Catholic Church in San Francisco, a beautiful old building with stunning stained glass. After the service, we lit candles together. One for Frank, one for Vanessa, one for all the people who'd helped us along the way. As we stood there in the quiet church watching the candles flicker, Noah signed to me, "Do you think we did okay? With everything?" "I think we did better than okay." I signed back. "I think we did what love looks like when it's tested. We showed up. We forgave. We chose grace, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard." He smiled at that, and we stood there together, grandmother and grandson, mother and son, Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful. Outside, the San Francisco fog was lifting, and the sun was breaking through. And I thought, this is what redemption looks like. Not perfection, not forgetting, but choosing every single day to love anyway. Epilogue. 10 more years passed. I was 83 when I finally got too sick to live independently. Noah moved me into a care facility near his house, the best one in San Francisco, with nurses who learned basic ASL just to communicate with him, with gardens and art therapy, and a chef who made the kind of food I actually wanted to eat. Noah visited every single day, sometimes twice a day. He'd sit with me, tell me about his work, about the new versions of bridge sign being used in schools around the world, about the scholarship fund reaching its 1,000th recipient. One afternoon, he brought a visitor, a young woman, late 20s, with curly brown hair and warm eyes. She was deaf, and she signed her introduction. My name is Anna. I'm one of the scholarship recipients from 10 years ago. Your grandson changed my life. She told me her story. Foster care, poverty, being told she couldn't go to college because of her deafness. The Vanessa Pearson Fund had paid for her education at Gallaudet University. Now she was a software engineer at Verto, working alongside Noah. I heard about the fund's namesake Anna signed, about how Noah's mother struggled but eventually found sobriety and helped other women. That story gave me hope, made me realize that broken people can still do good things. I looked at Noah, and he was smiling, and I realized this was it. This was what all the pain and struggle and grace had been for. Not just to raise one boy, but to create ripples that touched hundreds of lives. Thank you for sharing that, I signed to Anna. It means everything. That night, after Anna left, Noah sat with me while I had dinner. Bland hospital food that he tried to make seem appetizing by describing it enthusiastically, in sign language. Grandma, he signed, I need to tell you something. What? I'm getting married. To Anna. We've been dating for 6 months. I didn't tell you because I wanted to be sure. But I'm sure. I started crying. Happy tears this time. That's wonderful, baby. I'm so happy for you. The wedding is in 3 months. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. I want you there. Front row. Will you be well enough? I nodded, even though we both knew well enough was optimistic. But I'd crawl to that wedding if I had to. I'd see my grandson marry a woman who loved him, who understood him, who shared his language and his world. I'll be there. I signed. I promise. I kept that promise. 3 months later, on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Golden Gate Park, I sat in the front row in a wheelchair, decorated with flowers by Anna's nieces, and watched Noah marry the love of his life. The entire ceremony was in ASL. No spoken words, just hands moving in the sunlight, forming promises and poetry, and forever. When they signed I do to each other, I cried so hard the nurse had to give me extra tissues. At the reception, Noah wheeled me to the front of the room. He stood up and signed something, which Anna translated out loud for the hearing guests. This woman is my grandmother, but she's more than that. She's my mother, my best friend, my first teacher, my biggest supporter. She learned a new language for me. She fought the world for me. She showed me what unconditional love looks like. And every good thing I've ever done, every life I've ever touched, started with her believing in a scared, deaf 3-year-old kid who had nothing except the grandmother who refused to give up on him. Grandma, this day, this life, this love, it's all because of you. Thank you. Everyone in the room stood and applauded, but all I could see was Noah, my beautiful boy, signing I love you, with tears streaming down his face. I signed it back. I love you too, forever. I died 6 months later, peacefully in my sleep, with Noah holding my hand. My funeral was at St. Anne's. Noah organized everything, music, readings, flowers. He gave a eulogy entirely in ASL, which was projected on screens so everyone could read along. Grace Pearson was the strongest person I ever knew. Not because she never broke, but because she always put herself back together. Not because she never doubted, but because she chose faith anyway. Not because she never got tired, but because she kept showing up. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when you're hard to love. She taught me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing peace over bitterness. She taught me that grace isn't earned, it's given. And when you receive it, you're supposed to pass it on. My grandmother gave me everything. But the greatest gift she gave me was this. She showed me that even broken stories can have beautiful endings. That redemption is always possible. That love wins. I'll miss her every day for the rest of my life. But I'll honor her by living the way she taught me. With compassion, with courage, with grace. Thank you, Grandma, for everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For being my mother when I needed one most. I hope I made you proud. After I died, Noah established one more scholarship fund. This one was called the Grace Pearson Memorial Fund, and it specifically supported grandparents and other non-traditional guardians who were raising children with disabilities. He wanted to help people like me, the ones who stepped up when biological parents couldn't, the ones who sacrificed retirement and peace to give children the futures they deserved. The fund provided financial assistance, respite care, legal support, and community resources. Within 5 years, it had helped over 500 families, and every single recipient received a handwritten note from Noah that said, "My grandmother showed me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. Thank you for showing up for your child. You're changing the world." 20 years after I died, Noah stood on a stage at the United Nations, accepting a humanitarian award for his work in accessibility technology and supporting vulnerable families. He was 43 years old. Anna stood beside him, their 2 children, both hearing, both fluent in ASL, watching from the audience. In his acceptance speech, Noah said something that got quoted around the world. Someone once asked me how I managed to overcome so many obstacles: poverty, deafness, abandonment, adversity. And I told them the truth. I didn't overcome anything alone. I had a grandmother who decided my life was worth fighting for. She taught me that obstacles aren't walls, they're stepping stones. And every person who's ever felt forgotten or abandoned or broken, you're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by who shows up for you and what you do with that gift. That night, Anna asked him, "Do you think Grace is proud of you?" Noah smiled and signed, "I think she's been proud of me since the day I signed Grandma for the first time. Everything else is just details. And somewhere, maybe in heaven, maybe in the space between memories and dreams, maybe just in the hearts of everyone who knew her, Grace Pearson smiled, because she'd done exactly what she'd set out to do all those years ago when a scared 3-year-old boy showed up on her porch. She'd shown up. She'd loved. She'd never given up. And she'd proven that even the most broken beginnings can become the most beautiful stories. The end. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:21. My daughter abandoned her deaf son to go live a wild life, and I adopted him. 6 years later, he created an app that was sold for $8 million. And then she came back wanting her share. But she had no idea that,